Jennifer and Mark, welcome to the bar.
Thank you
Hi,
for
Garry.
having us.
Yeah, well, we were speaking earlier, and I know you know that I really only have a green screen, that it's not
Very
really a
disappointed.
bar. I know.
Particularly as bars are open, Gary.
But this is I'm losing some of my impact now. At least when the bars were closed, I could at least pretend. But it's great to have you. Thank you so much for giving up your time this afternoon. Where are you? You're not together, I can see that, but where exactly are you holding up? I'll start with Jenny.
So just at home. I've been working from home now for, what's been, Mark, 4 months at this stage?
March,
Yeah.
whenever we all closed down, yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah.
I had a colleague of yours on this in March, and what I noticed very first, she had a clock right behind, and I said, that's such a typical lawyer thing, always on the clock. So it's just so nice not to see a clock. And Mark, you look,
don't worry, the invoice will be in the post.
yeah, that's always. You look like you're somewhere very comfortable. That's what I would say about you there now, Mark.
I'm upstairs in the attic. So at home, it's got converted there a few years ago. So I've kept the pool table and the dartboard out of sight, but that's where I am. That's where I've been for the last 4 months.
Is that the den? Is that the boys' den?
Yeah, my son's den, yeah. And as I say, method of communicating with them is by playing sport with them and watching sport.
Yeah. Are you there on your own, Jen? Are you there with a gang around you, or?
My partner is working from home as well, so he's been shunted into the other room while I chat to you guys.
So I guess the thing is, how's it been, and how does it continue to be? Because we started these Barstool chats 4 months ago, and even then we were sort of optimistic it would somehow end, and then we'd be told there's a day when it ends, and now we realize it's going to be protracted. So how's it been in the last particularly 6 weeks when things are sort of open, not open? Are you changing your mindset? How are the kids getting on now they're fully out of school?
I think the kids are loving it. I mean, in fairness, they were very good during the full lockdown, but as soon as they could, certainly the teenagers were on their bikes and off to see their mates and in the park and kicking ball and stuff, which is great. But they've been fantastic. Yeah, it's like all things. I imagine you don't sit very often at your desk all day long, so it's a bit of a strange one for day in, day out, 5 days a week or whatever, being stuck, 8, 9, 10 hours a day at the same desk. You're normally meeting people, going to see, there's a bit more of a variety. So that's been kind of tough.
Yeah.
But I guess the good thing is, hey, not sitting in traffic or public transport or what have you, you save an awful lot of time.
Yeah.
Not simply wasting time in traffic or on darts or buses, and that's been a revelation for me. I worked it out. It's about 6.5 hours a week.
Wow.
I commute, and that's wasted time, So I found as much more, you can get more hours out of the day nearly.
Yeah.
By not commuting.
And would you have that sort of travel pre-lockdown, Jennifer?
Yeah, I mean, it is brilliant skipping the commute. As Mark says, you just get a longer day. To be honest, like I've found it okay. I think it's funny how quickly people adapt. If you'd said last year, this time next year you're going to be on lockdown, you can't see your family or friends, you can't move within 2 kilometers, you can't work in your office, you totally panic. But when it actually comes to it, you're set up, you work from home, you just kind of get on with it. And I think most people have been quite good. The big thing for me is we have a team meeting every Monday morning, and we do it over Zoom, and I find it makes a big difference being able to see people's faces. During the week you might just have a quick phone call and that's all fine, but it is nice to be able to actually physically see someone, even if you're not in the same room as them.
It's hard to read body language. I love body language, and even eyes. I did a course a couple of years ago about reading eyes, dilation, and I can't see it. Would you come a bit closer, and I can't see it.
I love the one where someone puts up a graph on a Zoom call, and it's just so small, the writing, that you have to go, and then it's kind of everybody, you have to turn off the video, make sure the video is turned off. So yeah, there are some getting used to it. But like Jenny said, we literally had a trial on a Friday saying, hey guys, we're just going to trial this just to see. We're not sure what's going to happen in the future. And by lunchtime on that Friday, it was like, lads, we're doing this for the foreseeable. And we've been doing it since March, I guess.
Yeah.
Middle of March.
And now it's going to be hard to reverse it out. But I wanted to ask you some questions about something, and I know we all love, well, I'm a techie-ish guy. We love 3-letter acronyms. You guys, for the purpose of this call, you love a 4-letter acronym. So I see it everywhere. PPPA or PPA, CPPA. And I understand it's a power purchase agreement. And if a big company enters it, it becomes a corporate power purchase agreement. Can you please tell me what that is?
Well, it's kind of what it says on the tin. So it's an agreement, PPA, agreement. The A is for agreement. P is power, so invariably we're talking electricity. And someone's buying and someone's selling, so there's a purchase. So really trying to keep it really simple, because I think often, lawyers have a tendency and energy professionals have a tendency to use those 3-letter acronyms too often and use the jargon. It's literally one person selling electricity to another. So if you had your big consumers of electricity, pharma plants, your data centers, obviously, they have big power needs. They have big electricity needs. They need to buy their electricity. And what I suppose the move towards it is, and you can see it in the Climate Action Plan, is the government wants more people, more corporates to buy green electricity through power purchase agreements.
And that's in 30 seconds fantastic. And yet I see books being written about them. I see entries. So I get that they're complex. And Jennifer, I am a person who wants to buy one of these purchase agreements. So do I ring up my local energy supplier, or do I need to bring in a whole room of lawyers?
Well, I guess the interesting thing is you mentioned there about PPAs, your power purchase agreements, and then you also mentioned a corporate power purchase agreement. It's sort of what's the difference between the two of them? And it's exactly what you've suggested there. Anyone can ring up your energy supplier, you decide to enter into a power purchase agreement, that's fine. But the kind of the new kid on the block, or what's really exciting for big businesses and corporates and things like data centers, is this corporate power purchase agreement. And there's really no magic science behind it. The thing is, really, you have a guy who wants to build a wind farm, for example, wants to generate electricity and sell it. But that's a very expensive thing to do. And maybe it's difficult for him to find what they call a route to the market. Maybe he's not able to get to enter into a support scheme from the government. Maybe there's whatever difficulties. And then you have a big corporate who wants a lot of electricity. So rather than kind of messing around with, where do I go and who do I call, these two people just get together and they say, right, you build your wind farm, we'll buy all your electricity. And there you have a big, what they call a corporate power purchase agreement. And it's a brilliant thing, because what the corporate, for whatever corporate business, data center, whatever, has managed to do is essentially to get a wind farm or a solar farm or whatever renewable electricity generator it is, you've managed to get that built. You've actually done something really active and contributed to, as Mark said, the Climate Action Plan, the climate crisis that we have. So it's a really exciting development.
It's an incremental build, or it's an incremental bringing it forward. And I think it's a little bit like, I work more in the data space. And one of the challenges we have is that it's not physical. You can't see Zoom. You can't see Microsoft Word anymore. Whereas back in the day, you'd floppy disks or whatever it was. And that's why I often think these types of things, it's a bit like when you're describing it. So a baker needs to buy volume flour to make bread. So rather than buying through a retailer, he goes to the wholesaler, the guy who grows it. So that's in effect what you're saying, is that there's people growing green electrons, or want to, and they are going direct to the guy who's going to consume it without the middle man or girl or person.
Sorry, Jenny.
Sorry. The thing about corporate PPAs is, you could start drilling down into the the legals of it, and how it's all done, and the markets, and it can start getting very complicated very quickly. But at a basic level, it's very simple, and you can get your advisors and your whatever in to help you with all the different aspects of it, make sure everybody's happy with the price and everything else. But I think there's plenty of detail in there, but the key thing is you're achieving something excellent at a very kind of simple basic level.
So if we were to say something like between now and 2028, for the purpose of this discussion, there is a gigawatt of new asset class data centers projected to be accommodated in Ireland. And we want that to be incrementally adding to Ireland's, to your point, the whole decarbonisation of the grid. Is there a market-making mechanism right now, or maybe Eversheds are going to launch today on this call, a matchmaking mechanism where I can ring somebody and say, I am a data center, I want to get over a year, 2 years, 50 megawatts of Irish green electrons. Is that something I do? Can I do?
So the short answer is there isn't an estate agent for corporate PPAs. So there isn't someone who's finding buyers and sellers. That's unfortunately not the case. But the government does, and is targeting 15% of all PPAs to be corporate PPAs by 2030. So not quite 2028, 15%. And I suppose we're only at the start of it. And I suppose if I had any message to someone who's either who's running a data center or thinking of building or powering a data center, is don't be scared off by the acronyms. Don't be scared off by the science. And as I said, the people in the industry might, is it jargon it up? Is that a word, expression? But you can get lost in the detail. But at the start and the end of it, it can be very simple. And also when you say, oh, but we've nothing to show for it. But wouldn't it be great if a data center owner was able to say, hey, I'm powering that wind farm. It wouldn't be there if it was mine. They can stick that on the wall and tell all their employees and all their customers, hey, this is what I'm doing. And that's really something powerful and tangible. So I suppose we need to enable that market for the buyers to find the sellers and vice versa. And it isn't quite happening yet. So that would be something wonderful. But I think the first thing is to debunk the myth that it's too hard.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, because then you start, and I'm glad we had this 101, let's call it, for the purpose of this, because then you start seeing in the press virtual power purchase agreements, VPPAs. That's obviously second year in college, is it, Jennifer? That's when we go to advanced calculus, because that's when we start getting confused of the physicality of all this, that an electron, if it is a real thing, generated somewhere else or across the other side of the Europe, can be in my wire. I think that's sometimes also, particularly to Mark's point, when you're dealing with corporates who like to have a central point of, I want for the whole of EMEA, or I want APAC. You know how they work. They want to compartmentalize. Oh, that's done now. Does that then confuse local desires to decarbonize?
I think, as Mark said, the jargon and the language around it can make it seem more confusing than it is. And there's all these different types and variations of corporate PPAs. Like you mentioned one there, the virtual, there's sleeved. I think I read somewhere there's something like 26 different variations, but that shouldn't be seen as something that's complicated. It just means it's something that's adaptable to the needs of the corporate or the data center or whoever is buying the electricity and the generator who's selling it. This can be set up in whatever way it needs to be to work for you, and that's a real positive. And you mentioned Europe there. America is the place where corporate PPAs are really taking off, but Europe is chasing it. It's just in the past year, I mean, 2 gigawatts or something. It's bounced up by in Europe, and Ireland is like we can see just recently with the new programme for government how much momentum there is in the renewable generation space. And there's real scope there in Ireland for something like a corporate PPA to really take off. So I wouldn't worry too much about, the jargon and the different types. that'll all get sorted. It's whatever works for you.
And finally, can I ask you, we talk in Ireland about 10 times more generating capacity of renewable energy than we can ever consume ourselves, because we're finite consumption. And often it's wind and it's solar. Never in my lifetime did I think that we would be able to call solar in Ireland, but our technologies have moved on. Can I also potentially get a power purchase agreement with a hydrogen gas provider if and when that develops? Can I do that if it's on island as well? Because is it restricted just to wind and offshore, onshore and solar? Can it be biogas? Can it be?
Yeah, the answer to that one is slightly longer than perhaps, but I'll try and get to it in a short way. So one of the problems with solar and wind is that it's intermittent. You need your electricity. If you're running a data center, you need it on. We know 99.99% of the time. Yeah. So obviously, wind and solar is intermittent. It doesn't blow all the time. It's nighttime some of the time. You know. Yeah. So what do we do with the surplus electricity that we generate when it's not needed? And one of the big solutions would be turning that into what's known as green hydrogen now I don't know the science, but through an electrolysis method, you'd then change that surplus electricity into hydrogen. Now, as I would understand it, I think you'd probably have to change it back into electricity by combustion to power your data center. But yeah, no, that's definitely, and you saw the EU announced its hydrogen strategy last week. Germany's already got its own hydrogen strategy, so is Holland, I understand. So, you know, it's coming, and that's part of the solution of the intermittency of those renewable energies, is to get something that you can actually physically store it and then use it, turn it back into electricity when it's needed.
Yeah, and I think one of the things as well is they always talk about first movers and laggards, and often, you know, the laggards, as we've been called. And then when others have gone through the pathfinding, we can maybe learn from their experiences and apply better systems. Now, we'll be the pathfinders in 20 years, but there seems to be a sense, oh, this is a better way to do it. 3 words. Have you got 3 words, either professionally or personally? Is there 3 words that your son, if he rocked up now and said, "Duh, I want to play some snooker," is there 3 words you'd give him? There's 3 words that you'd give him.
Well, in that case, you'd be sorry I'm working.
And this is a family show. So no.
I think in the context of it. Oh, sorry. Am I back?
Yeah.
Sorry. Sorry, I was saying I had only 20% left on my battery. I think for me it would be, and if I can have an is, energy transition is happening. So brilliant. This is going to happen, and we all need to talk to each other and understand each other's commercial needs so we can do more of it.
Okay. Jennifer? Is it Jenny, Jennifer, or Jen?
If it begins with a J, I tend to answer.
Jesus. Jesus.
Maybe not quite that.
Okay, that was too far.
Yeah, your 3 words. I mean, like, given everything that's been going on with COVID and that, I think I would say we are brilliant, and I mean that in a really positive, forward-looking way. I mean, when you think of how difficult COVID has been and what we've managed to do, flattening the curve, like, you know, you can argue things could have been done differently or other ways, but really, we've really achieved, you know, something excellent there. And I think we can do that with climate change as well. I think if you have that attitude, look at what we can do, even in the worst of times. Look how brilliant we are, really, when we all pull together. I think that's the way we need to tackle things like climate change and just generally going forward.
I'm anticipating Eamon Ryan will be giving you a call very soon. You're a spokesperson for decarbonisation. Jen, Jennifer, Jenny, thank you so much. Mark, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure. You've taught me something, and I think we're going to have you back. Thank you so much.
Love to do it again. Thanks a million.
In a real bar next time.